What's up guys, today I finally finished my rune and item guide, you could call it. I want to give you guys a deep dive into my thought process and my build paths that helped me climb to Challenger on 2 accounts this season. So, to start it off, the best runes for Lillia. There are 2 options you have, Conqueror or Dark Harvest. Now, as you can see here, the best rune on Lillia is Conqueror. 99% of the time, you're going to go Conqueror, okay? It is just such a good rune on her. You can heal throughout so many fights. It's helped me survive countless times in every type of situation. You know, you survive with 1 health after healing because you stack your Conqueror really fast in team fights, and it just helps you heal and synergize and gives you extra damage. Now, Dark Harvest is a rune that I personally just build when I'm bored, but you can go Dark Harvest and it's pretty good into a team comp of 3 or more squishy champions. And you're going to want to do this if you just want to play to snowball and just play full damage and have fun. Most of the time, Conquer is just better. It just gives you more value. But, you know, Dark Harvest has its place against team comps that you can snowball and they're squishy. Now let's look at the rune setups more closely. So the first setup I like is Conqueror with Overheal, Legend Tenacity, and Coup de Grace. Legend Tenacity and Coup de Grace are usually the best, right? There's never any reason for you to take the alternatives, but you can definitely switch Overheal to Triumph. I have had games where Triumph helps me a lot. Overheal is generally better, especially if you go Green Smite, because it allows you to have a huge shield before a lot of team fights. Your secondary runes is the only variation between these 2 Conqueror rune setups. And on the first page, you go Inspiration because it's really strong on jungle in general to go this Inspiration setup secondary, because it allows you to save some gold on your boots. And the magical footwear boots are actually a little bit faster than normal boots. So Cosmic Insight gives you 18% summoner spell haste, which allows you to flash way more often. And on Lillia, Q flash ulting is one of the most powerful combos in the game, so you're gonna want your flash up a lot more soon. Now, there is definitely a time and a place for the rune page on the right, because there are some games where the enemy team is really melee heavy and your flash loses some of its value, right? If you're playing against, for example, Yasuo AD carry with a bunch of other melee bruisers, you don't need your flash to get on top of them. As opposed to if you're playing against Caitlyn Lux, it's going to be hard for you to hit them with your abilities without flashing. So you got to make that judgment by yourself. Just see if an enemy team comp is heavily melee, then I would recommend the rune page on the right, because you go Conditioning Overgrowth, which lets you scale really well. And it also synergizes with the Jack Show build. That's one of my favorite builds. And it just gives you a disgusting amount of armor and MR. Now we have Dark Harvest. So for Dark Harvest, on the left, you can see you just go Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, because your W counts as a Sudden Impact proc. So if you ult and then you W, you'll get Sudden Impact bonus. And you have Eyeball because you're trying to snowball, so your Eyeball collection. And you can either go Treasure Hunter, or as you can see on the right, you can see the variation is you can go Relentless Hunter. You go Treasure Hunter to really embrace the snowballing aspect of the build, and you go Relentless Hunter because movement speed is just good on Lillia. So it's up to you how hard you think you can snowball. If you think you can get a lot of kills early, you should try to go for the Treasure Hunter. Now for the Dark Harvest page on the left, you go Legend Tenacity and Coup de Grace as your secondary rune, because Tenacity is just strong in general. So if the enemy team has a lot of CC, you want to go Legend Tenacity, and then you go Coup de Grace because it synergizes well with Dark Harvest and gives you a lot more damage on squishy people, especially when they're low health, right? So it helps you execute low health people with Dark Harvest plus Coup de Grace. It's just good synergy with the build. Now for the Dark Harvest page on the right, the reason you go Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight is because it's the same reason as before. If the enemy team has a lot of hard to reach ranged targets, you're going to want your flash on cooldown sooner so that you can punish them.
What's up, guys? I've noticed on my videos that 92.5% of my viewers are not subscribed. I just wanted to announce that when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away two 1350 skins on League of Legends. If you are interested in that, or you're just interested in my content in general, please subscribe.
Now for the items, there's a lot of variations in the items, but generally I like to break it down into 3 different builds. And guys, don't worry, for the next season, I will be uploading a new item guide video. It will be more comprehensive and it'll probably show more gameplay. This one is just a quick and dirty item guide. I worked hard on theory crafting these, but if you guys want the full Lillia guide experience, it's going to come for season 2024. Just putting it out there. When I play Lillia, I like to break down her build ideas into 3 different core builds. Now those builds are scaling, drain tank, and damage. Now before we get into the builds, let's look at the starter items, okay? So for Lillia, you have 3 different starter items. It's the 3 different jungle pets. Due to all the nerfs and changes, all 3 jungle pets are viable in their own way. Scorch Claw is a lot better now since the other 2 were nerfed. Scorch Claw is good because it allows you to slow people with your abilities when you don't have Rylai's. If you need to slow people to catch up to them, you can go Scorch Claw. I think it's always pretty solid, and it's usually, right now, it's my default. I like being able to slow people before Rylai's because sometimes you don't get Rylai's until maybe the 3rd item. Now for the Blue Smite, you just go Blue Smite when you need to clear fast and have good tempo. This one synergizes well with the Dark Harvest rune page because you want to be, fast, snowballing really rapidly. It also synergizes well with the scaling build because it allows you to full clear faster. And then the green smite is just generally good, right? It's good on every single build. And the green smite is just good. And it synergizes well with overheal. So if you're going the overheal rune, you're probably going to want to go green smite because it helps you set up team fights really well. If you have the overheal rune and green smite, you will have a huge shield before every team fight after just clearing 1 camp. So it's really strong. Now for your boots, I think there are 3 viable options. And there are a few different other boots that you could go, but generally I stick to these 3 boots. Mostly I go plated steel caps. That's my first option every single game. If I don't know what boot to go, I'll go plated steel cap because most champions in the game of League of Legends auto attack, and if you read the passive of plated steel caps, they counter auto attacks pretty heavily. Most games I will go plated steel caps. If the enemy team has 3 or more AD champions, plated steel caps is never bad. However, there are some games where Merc treads are just stronger due to the tenacity effect of Merc treads. So actually, contrary to popular belief, when you build Merc treads, you're not building it for the magic resist, because the magic resist given by Merc treads is the same as a null magic mantle, or is it the 450 MR item gives you the same amount of MR as the Merc treads themselves, right? So the reason you go Merc treads is for the tenacity. So if the enemy team comp has a lot of stuns, right, and it's a bonus if they have a lot of AP as well, but if they have a lot of stuns, you can go Merc treads and just get a lot of tenacity, which will help you get through those team fights with the stuns. And then finally, if you are snowballing really hard and the enemy team might be building some MR and you're not scared of any like Yone or some type of auto attacking champion, and you're not scared of CC, you can go Sorcerer Shoes. I personally don't think Sorcerer Shoes are the best option most games, but go off feeling, test out the other 2 boots. There are some games where Sorcerer Shoes are pretty good. And then, so here I have 3 early game items, and these are the items that I recommend you buy after your 1st or 2nd clear. Obviously there are more items, but a lot of the times you're going to be building into Demonic or Rod of Ages as your 1st item. So besides the Dark Seal, which Dark Seal is just really good, you should be buying Dark Seal on your 1st recall almost every single time. If you can fit it in there, you should buy Dark Seal. And if you can't do it, try to do it on your 2nd recall. Because when you're playing an AP champion, it gives you that opportunity every single game to potentially snowball and carry the game, because you can stack it up and then you can turn it into a Mage Eyes. So go Dark Seal almost every single game. If you think about the math, a lot of times if you full clear and you don't do the Scuttle Crab, you will recall and you'll have 850 gold. So, or like 750, or it's like 750, 800 gold, I think is what you get. So what you should buy is Ruby Crystal plus Dark Seal, because this gives you survivability, it's 150 health, and the chance to snowball, and a little bit of AP for your clear. So a lot of times, especially when you know you can't contest a Scuttle Crab, which sometimes happens on Lillia, right? Because if your team can't get push, you're not the strongest champion. You're pretty strong level 4. Like, Lillia is not bad, but sometimes you just have to recall and go to the other crab. If you find yourself recalling with 800 gold, 750 gold, purchase Dark Seal plus Ruby Crystal, and then eventually Ruby Crystal obviously upgrades to Giant's Belt, or into the component that builds into Rod of Ages, and Blasting Wand builds into Demonic Embrace and Rod of Ages, right? So regardless, these items are very good in the early game after your first couple of recalls, because they build into the main components of Lillia. Okay, now comes the juicy part, the theory crafting part. This is where you are going to have to think during your game about what you need to do, what you need to build. If you build the same build every single game, there are plenty of games that you will lose because you did not have the optimal items. So when I'm building the scaling build, this is what I like to do. The first 2 items are always going to be the same. You should go Rod of Ages, because you have to go Rod of Ages first if you're building it, because it scales over time. And then Demonic. Demonic has to be second, because it's just one of the strongest it is the strongest item on Lillia. You're gonna go Rod of Ages and then Demonic, and now come the options. For your options, and this is not a comprehensive list of all the options, this is just some of the best items that I could think of. The best item, so let me explain. The items that are the biggest in the middle, along the line, those are your optimal items. So if you're having a perfect game, those items are generally the strongest. But I will say in this situation, you can swap. You could swap the Void Staff and the Rabadons depending on the game. But most of the time, the enemy team will have a lot of MR if you're fed, so you'll get Void Staff first. Alright, so let's get into the third item. So Rylai's is the item that I like to go if I'm really fed, and the enemy team comp is easily kited if I can slow them. It allows you to run circles around team comps even further. Now, the games where Rylai's is not good is if you're not that far ahead and you need a more defensive setup, or if the enemy team is kiting you a little bit too well where you can't get in range to actually proc it. Rylai's is good into shorter range team comps and just when you're ahead, because it also gives you HP, you gotta remember, and HP gives you more AP, well, it gives you more damage through Demonic Embrace. Anyway, so the 2 options you have as alternatives is Zanyas and Banshees. So you just build these based off what the enemy team comp has. Most of the time you're going to want to build Zanyas because it allows you to make more plays. You know, Q flash ult into a Zanyas allows you to ult like the whole team and be safe. And Banshees is really good against, you know, mages that like to stun you, like Syndra, Lux, anything like that, where you need to get into their team comp through some CC or a spell that could hit you and kill you. Banshees is good. And then for your 4th item, if the game is going well and the enemy team is building a lot of MR, you're gonna go Void Staff. Void Staff is just really good when you're ahead because it pretty much nullifies most magic resist on enemy team. But if you're not so far ahead, or if you need to be tanking a little bit more, that's when you can go for these other options. And your other options are Force of Nature, because it gives you movement speed and magic resist, which stacks during fights. Those stacking items, or items that stack during a fight, are really good on Lillia because it synergizes well with your Conqueror and your Demonic Embrace. And then if you need armor, you can either go Deadman's or Frozen Heart. The games where you go Frozen Heart is when the enemy team comp has a lot of auto attacking champions, where slowing down their auto attacks would actually help you a lot. And then Deadman's is just good if you need to be kiting a little bit more movement speed, and the enemy team doesn't have fast auto attacking champions. And then obviously for your 6th item, most of the time it's just going to be Rabadons. If you get to your 6th item, and you get Rabadons and you Rod of Ages, you're going to have so much AP. So in a perfect world, that's what your item would be. But obviously, guys, don't take this fully as you should try to find items that fit in yourself. I'm giving you the skeleton, right? Next, we have the tanky items, okay? This one is a little bit more comprehensive. Once again, the first 2 items are always set in stone for Lillia. And when you're not going Rod of Ages, you're going to go Demonic as your first item. And then you go Jack Show. You don't see it in this chart, but you can potentially, if you're very far ahead and you want to snowball when you're doing the tank build, you can switch Jack Show and Rylai's and build Jack Show 3rd and Rylai's 2nd. But if you are building Jack Show 2nd and you're going to try to build Rylai's 3rd, then you have these other options, which is Zanya's if you need to making more plays and you need armor. Frozen Heart, once again, if the enemy team is auto-attacking a lot and they're auto-attacking fast. And if the enemy team has a lot of MR, you can either go Force of Nature, because it gives you movement speed and stacking MR in the fights, which synergizes with Demonic Embrace, Jack Show, and your Conqueror. Or you can go Spirit Visage if you want to get some healing in and you don't think you need the movement speed from Force of Nature. Spirit Visage also synergizes well with your Conqueror. And then for your 4th item, it's usually going to be Zanya's if you haven't built it already. But it could also be Banshees if you need magic resist, or you need to get through a spell that like I mentioned before. Or you can go Deadman's for movement speed and armor, or you can go Void Staff if you're very far ahead and the enemy team is stacking MR. Even though you're building tank, you still like the magic resist, because if the enemy has a lot of magic resist and you're going this build, you won't have enough damage to really impact the game. So build Void Staff if the enemy team is stacking magic resist. And then for the 6th item, in the perfect world you go Rabadons, but the alternatives is just, again, a bunch of these tank items. I've already explained why you build each one, but these items are just generally good with this build. And then finally, we have the damage variation. This is the build that you're going to be running when you go Dark Harvest. And if you also go this build if you are playing into a team that has a lot of health, because Demonic Embrace does max health damage and Liandry's does bonus damage based off bonus health. So with those 2 items together, you are going to be shredding tanks a lot. But let's start it off, okay? So first item is going to be Demonic Embrace. And if I forgot to mention earlier, the reason you rush Demonic Embrace when you can is because it's the best Lillia item out there. And it allows you, when you finish it in the early game, that's when you have a timer to fight. So even though you scale a lot as Lillia, and Lillia wants to farm, if you have Demonic Embrace, you can take fights. There's a timer where you can take any fight you want. And then for your 2nd item, you go Landry's because it is the mythic that does the most damage with Lillia. And then for your 3rd item, you usually go Zanya's to make more plays, but you can go Rylai's to slow, melee team comps. You can go Rabadons if you're snowballing really heavily, and you can, if you have a lot of gold and you just want to slam a Rabadon, you can do that sometimes. And then obviously Banshees against champions, like I said before, champions that have a spell that can stop you. And then for the 4th item, you're probably gonna want to go Void Staff if the enemy team is building a lot of magic resist. Otherwise, put that Rabadons in there or get another defensive item. There's a world where you go Zanya's and then Banshees, and the reason you would do that is if you were really far ahead, then you would have 2 defensive items and you would make up for the damage with your levels. Because if you're far ahead on Lillia and you're up 2 to 3 levels, that is more damage than it would be to have, for example, like a Rabadon's. It gives you so many more stats than just damage, and the Zanyas and Banshees allow you to conserve your shutdown more easily than if you were to go full damage. And then 6th item is, most of the time, it's just going to be Rabadons. There are some games where Shadow Flame or Void Staff would fit in this slot. Void Staff is good into a lot of magic resist. And Shadow Flame is usually only going to be built if you already have Void Staff. So if you built Void Staff 4th, and then your 5th item would be Shadow Flame, it would be pretty good if the enemy team has a lot of shielding and magic resist. There is a world where you can go Cosmic Drive. I don't like the item that much, but I just put it there because, you know, if you're snowballing really heavily, you could go Cosmic Drive. You could even build it a little bit earlier, but I don't think it's a very good item personally. I think the movement speed is just too much. You don't need it. So yeah, those are the rune items that I like to go on Lillia. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. If you have any comments or concerns or advice for your own builds, you can put those in the comments. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. And don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe, because it means a lot to me. And we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Like, I'm so, please, guys, please, so close.